Check out these really cool bracelets, necklaces, and other projects. You're never gonna believe it, but every single bead is handmade from paper.
It's who I am, a little rare, some sour fare, and some mystery, putting it all together, doing what I do, doing what I do.
Hi, I'm Nikki from Club Scrap, and if there's one thing I really love, it's paper. But I also really like making handmade jewelry. So today, let's combine the best of both worlds and make this gorgeous bracelet using handmade beads that we're going to create ourselves. Let's get started with Club Scrap's paper bead making kit. It comes with all the supplies you need to make perfect beads each and every time. Let's take a look at our paper selection. I've chosen this paper from Club Scrap's Great Outdoors collection. It has this gorgeous reed-like texture, and I really wish you were here so you could feel it. First thing we're going to do is check out the grain direction of our paper, and this is really a simple step. You're going to grab the edge with your thumb and forefinger and hold it in front of you. I'm going to rotate 1/4 turn, hold it between my thumb and forefinger again, and now we see that the paper is beginning to dip toward the table. This means we've found the grain direction of the paper, and we want to roll our beads in this direction. Next, let's check out this paper bead making template. It's perfect because it allows you to make uniform, consistent beads each and every time, which is something I really appreciate. You'll see here that we have 3 different sizes of beads: large, medium, and small. We have a lot of options for sizes and styles of beads. First, we have the isosceles triangle, which will give us this elliptical shaped bead. Next, we have the right triangle, which will create this cone-shaped bead. Next, we have the rectangle, which gives us this tube-shaped bead. And finally, the narrow triangle, which gives us these adorable little round-shaped beads. Next, we're going to begin tracing our beads, and we want to make sure that when we line up the template with the paper, you're keeping in mind that grain direction that we've already located. I'm going to use a fine tip permanent marker, and I'm using a permanent marker because when I glue the bead, I'll be using a water-based glue, and I don't want any ink to bleed onto my paper. Next, I'm going to trim around the bead with a small pair of scissors. And you can use a craft knife or a trimmer, but I've really found that a small pair of scissors works best for me just because of the small scale of these shapes.
Watch it fall around me, and shades plum and verdigris.
Here I've already cut out one of each shape from the template, and you can see that you really have a lot of variety to work with. I'm going to show you how to make my favorite bead, the ellipse. I'm pulling in a piece of waxed paper to protect my work surface when I begin gluing. The next step is to condition my paper bead, and this is very simple. I'm just going to put it between 2 of my fingers and roll the fibers of the paper to make them more flexible, and now I'm just telling them where I want them to go when I begin to roll the bead. Next, I'm going to protect the base of my bead with my fingertip. And I'm using Club Scrap's Bookbinding glue to glue my bead because it's acid-free, water-based, which is easy to clean up, and it tacks really quickly. Add a thin line of glue down the center of the bead. Use a foam brush to fan the glue from your fingertip all the way up to the tip, and it's very important to make sure that the entire surface of the bead from your fingertip to the edge is covered in glue. One of the other components in your Club Scrap paper bead making kit are these wooden dowels, and these are going to come in really handy because each bead that you make will have the same width in the inside due to the fact that you're using the same dowel each and every time. So I'm going to place this dowel right in the center of my glueless portion, and this is important. The reason that we've left this portion glueless down here is because if I began to roll the bead, I'd be gluing the paper to the dowel, and instead of a bead, we just have a really colorful stick. Roll very tightly and carefully, keeping the lines of the bead intact, and then just use your fingertip to secure the bead and make sure the tip is securely glued to the rest of the bead. Something that I really like to do when I'm making a whole batch of beads is to keep a piece of floral foam around and then to allow the bead time to dry, just tuck that dowel in. You can use a bowl with rice or sand in it, anything that you can get the dowels into. We're gonna let this one dry.
Who I am, a little rare, some savoir-faire, and some mystery.
So we've got this gorgeous paper bead, which we could use just like it is, but I think I want to make it a little bit more special. Now, gold accent beads can be very expensive, so let's make our own gold accent bead. I have my ellipse bead on a wooden dowel. I'm going to carefully just roll my bead right in the embossing ink. Just set the dowel on the edges of your tray, and we're going to sprinkle some gold embossing powder all over the bead, making sure you get really nice coverage. Tap off the excess embossing powder and heat with your heat tool to melt the embossing powder throughout the entire bead. Don't you just love this? You can still see the roll of the paper, but the gold is covering the entire surface. It's just beautiful. I'm going to show you how to create a really cool metallic art design on this tube bead, and I'm using the tube bead because it has the largest, flattest surface area of all our beads. I'm starting with a wood-mounted stamp from Club Scrap's Great Outdoors collection, and I'm going to completely ink with the same embossing ink. Then I'm placing my stamp with the rubber image facing up toward me, and with my hands on either side of the dowel, I'm going to simply roll the tube bead across the surface of the stamp, making sure to just make one rotation so you don't double up on the image. Again, set the dowel on the edges of the tray, and sprinkle some embossing powder. You can see already what a cool design this is going to be. With my heat tool, I will melt the embossing powder. And this is just beautiful. The metallic design just jumps off the bead. When I have a whole batch of beads made, I really like to store them in a recycled egg container. It gives me a lot of spaces to separate them and really makes them easy to locate.
Doing what I do.
So what am I going to do with all these beautiful beads? I'm going to show you how to make a gorgeous bracelet. I find it really easy to lay the beads out in front of me so that I can mess around with the pattern a little bit and kind of decide what I want it to look like. Now that I've done that, I have about a 7 to 7.5 inch length of cord where I will attach a finding of my choice to the end and then just begin to string the beads onto the cord in the pattern that I've chosen. Then just attach the finding on the other end of the bracelet, and here is the gorgeous bracelet, and it's perfect because I made every single bead myself. Let me show you some of the other projects I made. I found this great bead at a little store while I was on vacation, and it really inspired me to create this necklace. I used some more of my handmade paper beads and a piece of leather cord that I knotted to get this really cool look. But I'm a girl, and I can't just have a necklace. I need to have a bracelet to go with it. So I made this matching bracelet, not with the embossing technique, but just stamping with black ink, and I love it. But jewelry is not the only thing you can make with paper beads. I made this great greeting card for a friend, and you can see I used a totally different color scheme here, and the paper beads really make the card pop. This is my friend's dog, Flanagan, and I am just in love with him, so I had to make a special picture frame just for this photograph. I used this ribbon and these paper beads to create this flower pattern and a border around Flanagan's sweet little face. Don't you just want to pick him up and hug him? It has been so much fun sharing this project with you today and finding yet another use for one of my favorite things, paper. So roll up your sleeves, roll up some beads, and roll out your very own paper creations. I'll see you next time.
To create this project yourself, download this week's design guide. You'll get step-by-step instructions along with special make-it-your-own bonus tips and ideas.